I got no rules, I count 'em. I got no rules, I count 'em. Bread, bread, down, bread, down, bread, down, whipping open. Because I'm gonna lose my shit. I've been debating about this video because a couple people asked me to do this video and I did not know how to do it. So here I am. We're doing this together. In one of my videos, I do daily vlogs. In one of those videos, I mentioned that I struggle with anxiety, and I'm going to tell you how I found out it was anxiety and why it was severe, and then tell you how I got to mild now, to barely dealing with it, but still dealing with it. For me as a child, I was never anxious. I was outgoing, never nervous. I could talk to a signpost. Like, it never met a stranger for me. At least as far as I can remember. I don't ever remember feeling anxious or nervous about things. My anxiety started when I was 25 years old and I was coming down a flight of stairs at my house. I was standing on the landing, went to take a step, and I tripped and fell down a whole flight of stairs. Landed at the bottom on my head and hit the granite floor. So thank God I had my phone in my hand, and I called my mom, who was at work because I lived with my mom at the time. And I was like, I fell down the steps. All I can hear is ringing. You need to get here now. Then when I woke up, I was inside of a body bag. Yes, you heard me correctly. I was not dead, but I was in a body bag because I was being airlifted to Savannah Memorial because we're right here beside Georgia, so that's where they chose to take me. So I start freaking out and I'm pounding around, and you know, they're like, ma'am, calm down, we're taking you to the hospital. And I was like, why? I'm not dead. Why am I in a body bag? And they were like, because we don't want the debris from the helicopter to hit you, because they were all in their gear, you know. So I was like, okay. So they zipped me back up. They put me on the helicopter, and that's the first time I've ever been off of the ground, was to be airlifted. I've never been in a helicopter, never been in an airplane, none of that. Not even a Ferris wheel. And here we are flying over the ocean. So I, needless to say, was terrified, because every time the helicopter would, you know, drop just a little bit. So this was us going across the ocean, which that would give anybody anxiety. But at that point, I still had never dealt with anxiety, right? So we get over to the hospital. They stick me out in the hallway. I have a neck brace on because they weren't sure if my neck was injured, if my back was injured. They knew my head was. It was bleeding. It was split open. Finally, my mom, because they wouldn't let my mom fly in the helicopter, or my husband at the time, they wouldn't let them come, so they had to drive, and that's a little over an hour away for a drive, and it only took us 7 minutes to get there. They took me in a hallway, and it's a trauma center, so there's a lot going on, you know. There's people being, I mean, I saw all kinds of stuff laying out in that hallway, and some of that I'll never forget. But finally I see my mom, somebody I knew, and I start crying instantly, because I'm like, what is going on? Nobody still had not spoke to me. All I knew was I was all alone. I was alone when I fell. I was alone when I woke up. I was alone when I got to the hospital. And I was just like, I'm tired of being by myself. I need somebody. So they ended up keeping me, obviously. And that night, it was kind of like my heart was pounding. And I would get these sweats. And I was like, phew. But I kind of pinpointed it to the whole head thing, or the medicines that they had me on, because they had me on so many medicines. I didn't know if I was coming or going at this point. Because not only was my head injured, my ribs were bruised, my body was bruised. I was so sore. When somebody says you feel like you've been thrown down a flight of stairs, unless you've ever done it, You have no idea. Like, I have flew down a flight of stairs and it was no joke. Finally, I get to come home. Every time I would lift my leg to go back up the steps, I would get this feeling of overwhelmed. My heart was pounding again and I was shaking, and I was like, what is going on with me? Why can't I walk up these steps? Because my bedroom was upstairs. My mom's was downstairs. So, long story short, she ends up putting me in her room downstairs for me to recover, because I could not, the whole mental thing would not let me go up the stairs. And I knew it was all in my head, but I couldn't get past it. And so then I started getting angry, and I was like, you're going to go up those steps. You're going back to your room and you're going to do this. Finally made it up the steps through the shaking, the crying, and the heart pounding and all of that. I make it up the steps, go to my bedroom, and I stayed there. That's exactly what it felt like. It felt like I went to my room and I never left, because a few days after that, I tried to go somewhere and I was alone. And I can't remember if it was Walmart or what have you, but I remember going somewhere and I was alone, and it hit me out of nowhere. I was like middle of Walmart and it hits me. I get dizzy. It's like my eyes went blurry. I'm shaking. I instantly felt like I needed to puke. My heart was pounding. My hands were sweaty. I couldn't breathe. And I was like, whew. So again, I pinpointed it to the whole head thing. And I was like, they missed something. Something's not right. I don't know what to do. So I went home. I left everything. Left everything in the buggy, and I left. I got in the car and I was breathing, and I felt better, but I was exhausted. All of a sudden, like, I was exhausted, and I was like, okay, it's time. You need to start weaning yourself off this pain meds. So, your body is not reacting well to them. You need to back up a little bit. So I went home, laid down, went to sleep. After I healed, I returned back to my normal life. I went to work, but see, where I worked was also where my mom worked. I didn't know it at the time, but I eventually figured it out, that my mom was my safe person. And anybody with anxiety knows what I'm talking about. You have a safe person. It's that one person who you won't have a panic attack around them, because that's your person. We can fast forward about 3 or 4 months, and I dealt with the randomness of the heart and the head spinning and the fatigue and the sweating. I dealt with that in the 4-month span, maybe a handful of times. Still just kept pinpointing it to the head. I was like, it's, I'm still healing. Maybe everything will go back to normal. That's the only answer that I had. That was the only answer that I had. So then it got to the point to where every time I had to leave my house, it would happen. And I was alone. If I had to leave my house and was alone, I would go in full-blown panic mode. And I really wasn't scared of anything. Like, I wasn't scared of getting in a wreck and dying or anything like that. My fear was being alone. My worst time was at nighttime, because again, everybody was asleep, so I was alone. My mind. If you let your mind be dangerous, it will be very dangerous. So then I started going to the hospital, because I was like, I am having a heart attack. I'm having a heart attack. That's what it is. I know that's what it is. I'm having a heart attack. So I go to the hospital. This was like the second time I had been there for chest pains and shortness of breath. So then they diagnosed me with pericarditis, which is inflammation around the muscles of your heart, which I do have. But they said that it was coming from that. So I was like, okay, whew. You know, we have a diagnosis. Because when I started feeling all these things, I did the worst thing you can possibly do, and I Googled it. You know, first thing that pops up is, oh, congestive heart failure or some type of cancer or this or that. Well, again, it triggered this feeling that I was having, and then I would full-blown panic again. And I'm just like, this is like a vicious cycle. What is happening here? It's vicious. This is a horrible thing. I'm trying to figure out what is wrong with me, but every time I try to figure out what is wrong with me, I feel that way again. So then I don't even want to think about it anymore, because it makes me feel like what I'm searching for is wrong with me. You know, I don't know if that made sense, but whatever. After going to the hospital multiple times for chest pains and all this, I ended up I went to a heart doctor out in Bluffton. They did EKGs on me. I mean, it was a mess. It was a mess, because they had diagnosed me, put me on steroids for my heart. I was like, had a full-blown diagnosis and was on medication for this. And I'm like, I'm 25 years old. How do I have a heart problem? So then I went to a very dark place. A dark, dark, dark place. I did not leave my room. I did not leave my house alone for over a year. I would not go anywhere by myself. Then everybody started getting mad at me. Like, I would tell my mom, can you take off work and come with me to the doctor? Or can you take off work to come with me to the dentist? And she did this so many times. She would take off work to do these things with me. Neither one of us knew yet, you know, what was going on. And then she started asking me, why do I have to go everywhere with you? What is it? And I was like, I don't know. When I'm by myself, this is how I feel. And I told her, this is how I feel when I go somewhere alone. But when somebody's with me that I know and who knows that I feel this way, I'm fine. And that was what I couldn't figure out. I was interfering with their lives and their work and everything, because I wouldn't go anywhere alone. Because it can ruin your whole life. And it can. And it will. And it did if you let it. It did. It ruined mine for almost 2 years. It took 2 years of my life away from me that I will never get back. Every time I would go to the hospital, they were like, okay, you know, like, your heart rate is the speed of somebody working out, but you're sitting still. I know. Yes, I can feel it. Thank you for telling me. Now, what is wrong with me? Why is my heart going the speed of somebody running a triathlon, but I'm sitting still? And that's what we needed to get to the bottom of. When my sister was like, I think it's anxiety. I really do. I really think it's anxiety, because she struggled with anxiety. And she was like, everything that you're saying and everything that you're feeling to me sounds like anxiety. So you need to go to a doctor and tell them you have anxiety. So I just went to a regular urgent care. And, you know, I told them what had happened about me falling down the stairs, and I was alone when it happened. Then I gave her the full rundown of I can't leave my house alone to doctor's offices without someone with me. I felt like a child. Like I had to be took everywhere I went and drove, because I would have panic attacks in the car while I'm driving. I would have them if I was alone. You know, my son, he was 2. He wanted Happy Meals and stuff after preschool. So, you know, it went as far as me having to find fast food restaurants where the drive-through section is not blocked in, to where if I got in that line, I knew I could get out if I started to panic. They had just come out with the second intercom, that's where 2 people can order at one time, you know. So I was blocked. And I had a panic attack and I couldn't get out. I had to sit through the entire drive-through line. And when I got to the window, I just kept going because I was in full-blown panic mode and I couldn't get out. So I had to sit there and deal with it, not knowing how to deal with it because I hadn't spoke to a professional yet. So I felt like I was dying, so I just drove right past the window. I did not even want to cry this video. Like, I put on makeup and everything for y'all, and it's getting ready to just wash away. I'm gonna get it together. For about almost a year into it, you know, I was like, something's got to give. These people, my family, cannot keep taking off of work to take me here or there, and the only place I could go was to work because my mom was there. Because again, me and my mom worked together. That was the only place that I could go. And I was like, I am a prisoner in my own body at this point. So then, guess what happened? I got full-blown depressed. Full-blown depression. Like, did not care what I looked like. Did not care what I wore. I gained so much weight because I wasn't doing anything. Food was my happy. Because I couldn't go anywhere. Couldn't do anything because I would panic for no reason. So I would just eat. I would eat and I would watch other people live their normal lives and I would just eat my feelings. Now here I am unhappy with my appearance and I'm just like, oh my God. It got to a point I don't even want to say this, but I'm gonna be real. Like, I am wide open spaces right here with you guys right now, so you better take all this in. I'm being vulnerable. A really, really bad point to where my son didn't even make me happy anymore. That is how depressed and in the dark place I was. I didn't take him anywhere because I couldn't. I couldn't take him anywhere because in the fight or flight method with anxiety, I had to leave. Whatever situation I was in that moment that I was panicking, I had to leave. Had to, or was about to hit the fan. Like, it was bad. And I would go back and forth. I would be angry, then I would be sad, then I would be depressed, then I would be angry again because I was depressed. Then I would be confused because I was like, how can my mind control my body this much? Not one of those emotions that I was feeling was happy. I never went in and out of happy, sad, mad, glad. Mine was mad, sad, confused. Mad, sad, confused. That was mine. Never once in there was there a happy. And 90% of the time, I felt like I was outside of my body. I was not living my life in my body anymore. I was completely zoned out. I wasn't even in my body no more. I was an outsider looking in at how miserable this girl was. And the whole time, it was me. But I couldn't fix it because my mind wouldn't let me, because I had already come to the point where I let my mind control my whole life. And there was no coming back in my mind. Once you have your first panic attack, it's very, very, very hard not to have another one. Because then this is where the whole mind thing comes in effect here. Once you have that first panic attack, it just keeps happening. Keeps happening. Because in your mind, you feel the slightest weird feeling and you think you're going to have one. So end result, you end up panicking and making yourself have one because you know the feeling and you fear that feeling so much that you send yourself into panic mode because you don't want to feel it, but you know that you are because you've already felt it. And these things, they don't have a timestamp or a date or an announcement or invitation. They don't need any of that. They come out of nowhere, totally out of left field. You could be in the middle of Disney World, happiest moment of your life, and boom, that fast. That panic attack for no reason, and your whole day is ruined. Now it is what changed for me. What happened to where now I can go places, I can do things. Well, I got pregnant. Yes, I did. I couldn't even be as excited about the pregnancy as I wanted to be because my mind instantly went to, oh crap, you're going to have doctor's appointments that you're going to have to go to every single month now. You're going to have to do all these different things. You're already hindering your family's lives because you're making them take off of work to do everything with you. You can't go to Walmart. You can't even go to the dentist. So how are you going to go to these appointments every month? And when the baby's born, how are you going to take this baby to the doctor? How are you going to do all of these things? So then, that kind of ruined the whole moment for me. But I put it aside, and I was excited because I had multiple miscarriages. So I was excited, and I wanted a girl so bad. And I was like, God, please let it be a girl. Please let it be a girl. So again, my mom and my ex-husband, here I am. All right, I have an appointment this day and this day and this day. And I need to do this and this and this. So which one of you is going to take off of work and take me? And they did it. Because we didn't have a choice. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. The only funny part to this whole story is I am so strong-minded and stubborn. So I never thought something like that would have happened to me. Because if you tell me not to do it, I'm going to do it now just because you said not to. That's the type of person that I am. Even when I was in that dark place, struggling really, really, really bad with everyday activities, I was still outgoing when I would go out. But I would only go out with, it had to be one of my safe people who knew my situation, knew to get me out of there, knew what to say. When you're in the middle of a panic attack and people are just like, oh my God, calm down, calm down. That is the worst thing that you can say. Worst thing. I'm the type, you have to touch me. I am not a hugger and I'm not a big toucher, but if I'm panicking, I need you to touch me. Girl, it's going to be all right. Just breathe. I need you to acknowledge, I'm the type of person, I need you to acknowledge that I'm having a panic attack so I don't feel like I have to hide it. Because when I feel like I have to hide it because I feel stupid, it's like water boiling and it makes it 10 times worse. Like it's a serious thing. I need whoever is with me in that moment to treat it as serious as I feel that it is, because it is. It takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on your heart. It takes a huge toll on your mental state. And this is what pisses me off. Anxiety and panic attacks is a mental disorder. It is. It is a mental thing. It is all in our heads, but it gets overlooked. 90% of the time, it gets overlooked. And that is why people who struggle with anxiety and struggle with panic attacks is scared to talk to anyone about it, because it's so overlooked. They feel weak or they feel stupid. Before I got pregnant, I had already been to the doctor and they put me on all these medications, which were Band-Aids, basically. Band-Aids and super glue. That was all it was. It was doing nothing. They had me on Prozac, Lexapro, and Xanax. Not all at the same time, but over an extended amount of time. Those are the 3 medications that they put me on because it was so severe and nothing was helping. But then the medicines almost made me feel worse. And I was like, oh my God, like the the Prozac for me. The Prozac was the worst one for me. And see, Xanax, you don't really take every day. You take it when you're panicking. But it doesn't kick in instantly. So by the time I take the Xanax and it kicks in, panic attack's already over, you know? Halfway through the pregnancy, you know, I was like, you're an adult, not weak. Actually, it's made you stronger because now you know what you're dealing with. You know what you're up against. You know how it feels. You know when it's coming on. Now it's time to find things to fix the problem. Get off all these medications. It's not doing you any good. And you need to learn to deal with it on your own. You don't need a doctor because the doctors don't know your body. The doctors don't know how you deal with things. The doctors aren't inside your body when you're having these panic attacks. This is what I'm telling myself. This is not what I'm suggesting to everyone else. If you need a doctor, you go to a doctor, because I did. I went to a doctor. You know, I found out a lot of things about anxiety that I never would have known if I had not went to a doctor, but I felt like for me, the best way to deal with it was for me to figure it out. You know, when I left his office, he didn't have to deal with it anymore. I did. He didn't. So I started researching. And when I tell you I started researching, I basically went to school for anxiety at that point because it was day and night. I had my phone and I had my notebook. I found other people with anxiety. But with your anxiety and the way that you view the world, you feel like everybody's looking at you. Everybody's judging you. Everybody's, you know, it feels like everything's closing in all at one time. That's what it feels like. What I found out is what helped me was talking. Talk about it. The more I talked about it, the better I felt. Yes, in the very beginning, I would feel stupid. But the more I talked about it, the better I felt. And then I found out half of the people around me deal with the same thing. While I was out here talking to all these people, some friends, some family, some strangers, while I'm talking to all these people and doctors, I find out that anxiety and panic disorder, as well as depression, is the most common mental illness here in the U.S., affecting 40 million people. Only 36% out of 40 million, 36% of those people suffering get help. And that's where I think the problem is, because people are so scared and so embarrassed to talk about it. Because I was. And it's one of those, if you don't talk about it, maybe it goes away. It doesn't. It does not go away. It doesn't. And I started finding different solutions to help me too. I would look in the room and I would find a focal point and I would stare at it and count the things around it. I would count my fingers doing this and I would just start counting. I would count over and over and over and over. And one time I went to like 700. You have to go to 1,000, go to 1,000. But it occupies your mind and it gets your mind off of panicking. Music is a big one. I would put on songs that I knew so I could sing them and it would take my mind off of it. I would get on YouTube and watch videos. I would watch funny videos or watch vlogs, people's vlogs. It would take my mind off of it. For me, I'm not saying that's going to help everybody, but for me, that's what works. And getting out of the house. Getting out of the house. I'm going to say that one more time. Get out of the house. This is where I'm coming to the end of this video with my anxiety and my depression is not gone. But I've had 2 different jobs since then. Neither was with my mom. That was, I believe, the best thing that I ever did for myself was get out from under my mom's wing. I didn't make her my safe person anymore. I kind of branched out and I went and got a job around new people, a new place, new faces, new everything. I had a couple panic attacks there, not back to back, not the same day, not the next day. It was like a couple weeks apart, but I did it, and that's all that counts. And then the last job I had at Hilton Head Health, you know, I never once had a panic attack there. Never. Now that I'm not working, I struggled with it then when I was out moving and I was busy. My hands were busy. My mind was busy. I rarely struggled with it. It would be hit and miss. But now that I am not out interacting with people, I have more bad anxiety days than I did when I worked. It's because I'm not out interacting with people. I'm not using my brain and having to think about other things and do other things and come up with solutions, and I'm not having to do all this stuff, and I'm not using my hands, and you know, I'm sitting here every day. When I was working out, that was a huge factor that helped. I was working out, I felt good about myself, I was losing weight. That's one of my triggers for my anxiety and my depression is my weight, because I have struggled with my weight my entire life. I was born at 9 pounds 11 ounces, y'all. I came out walking, basically. I came out eating mashed potatoes, wearing 6 to 9 month clothes. So I have struggled my entire life, and that is just it for me. That is a trigger for me, and now I'm not working out. So now I feel like I'm struggling more than I used to. Those of you who do not have anxiety or do not struggle with depression or have panic attacks, kudos to you. You know, great. That's wonderful. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I really would not. That's how bad it sucks. But you know, I just wanted to tell my story and let you guys know when it started, how I think it started, how I dealt with it, what it did to my life, how did it change my life, how did it impact everybody around me, that I'm still dealing. It hasn't went away. Your mind is bored. It's kind of like anything else that gets bored. It ends up getting you in trouble. It's like a toddler. We're not alone. There's 40 million others of us struggling with the same thing, and it is okay to get help. It is okay to talk about it. It's better to talk about it. Don't try to hide it. Don't be ashamed of it. Find your person. And if you don't have a person, I will be your person. Just shoot me a message. I hope I helped. If not all 40 million of you struggling with anxiety, I hope I help at least one. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy, and I will see you in the next one.